Wow, I didn't know Pat Haden was so popular. This is RamView.
Out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the Ram Cave. I'm Joe Trosian, and this is RamView, the June 2nd, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Kistler Law at 661-206-990 has answers for you. Kistler Law, 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues, get yourselves some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. No, I'm not going to talk about Hudson Card playing quarterback for Purdue. I'm a Purdue fan. Hudson Card transferred from Texas. Yeah, he wasn't going to start above Quinn Ewers. There's no way. Anyway, this is RamView, FanView, a little chance to talk about the Rams and some other stuff. Thank you so much for clicking on. For new subscribers, Ray, thank you for clicking on. Shay, thank you for clicking on and joining the party here. I want to thank you for all your support and feedback. And before we get to the Rams stuff, I do feel compelled to talk a little bit about the NBA Finals, that game last night. And I was watching that game last night, and I really felt like I was watching the Miami Heat play the Denver Nuggets. I didn't feel like I was watching Steph's Warriors, Tatum's Celtics, LeBron's Lakers. You know how we always package those things. Or how the NBA packages those things. I really felt like I was watching two teams. It was a pleasure to watch. Now, yeah, Denver pulled away, but I felt like I was actually watching basketball. And this is, as I was watching it, I couldn't help but think a bill is coming due for the NBA, and it's been overdue. That it's been building for at least 30 years for the NBA, and it's gotten so bad that, rightly so, that when the league was struggling, and then Magic and Bird burst onto the scene, it made a decision, David Stern especially, the point to highlight their stars before the teams. And everyone became conscious of the stars, and which is crazy if they talk about getting rid of the free throw shot, the foul shot, because there's no better marketing moment for a player than that ISO they get at the foul line. But I digress. But the growth of that, putting the stars ahead of the teams, led to that ESPN highlight package that was all flash and no substance. All you saw were slam dunks, block shots, and three-pointers. And people in the streets, in the high schools, in the schoolyard, at the park, at the rec center, who couldn't slam dunk, block shots, or shoot three-pointers like what they saw. That's what they strive to do, and because it was what sold. But the game of basketball was lost, and the game was bad. I know people don't want to agree with me on that, but the game of the NBA was terrible because what they lost sight of is that Magic and Bird weren't excessively gifted in terms of physical aspects. Yeah, they were tall, but they weren't. Neither one of them were fast. Neither one of them were leapers. They had limitations. Magic and Bird, though, were fundamentally sound. And the players that immediately followed them were sound. Jordan, Barkley, those players that next tier, they were sound, okay? But the players who came about by the late 90s and the 2000s were less and less sound. And it became all about the splash, right? And last night we're watching Jokic dominate the game. And that's true. A lot of people are saying that. I don't feel any sense like I'm lifting anyone's material. But you're watching Jokic dominate the game. He takes 3 shots in the first half. I think it was. Was it 3 shots? And he's brilliant. And he doesn't need to be flashy. And he's not a leaper. And he's not a one-note star to beat you. Now, I'm not taking a cheap shot at Steph. Steph's a great player. But if you take away the three-pointer, half his game is gone. you got in Jokic, you got somebody who doesn't need to score but can dominate the game, right? It's a big difference there. And these are the physics of basketball that the NBA, which NBA has their brand of basketball, but the NBA doesn't own basketball. There are physics to basketball, and basketball well played fundamentally will always be the basketball we see on screen, always, that we see that has been perpetuated the last 30 years. One of the things that I used to love, I was part of a routine where my guys at the paper, Tim, Dwayne, all the guys I was working with at Old Mid Valley Sports, is every once in a while some young guys would invite us to come out Friday night late to the gym and play basketball. And we're already in our 40s, and we got the knee issues, all the different things that happen when you get old. And when we just refuse, we play full court, but when we refuse to get into fast breaks and running with them, the guys got frustrated because they didn't know how to play basketball. And you'd be surprised, even when you're 40, how well a pick and roll works against somebody who fundamentally is not sound. And this is how players are playing longer that are fundamentally sound. Even LeBron is playing longer because players who don't know how to play basketball. LeBron does know how to play basketball, but Stockton and Malone played 20 years in the league. They know how to play basketball. Reggie Miller knew how to play basketball. That's why they lasted so long. And when you're going against players that don't understand the backdoor cut, you were watching that Celtic Heat series, and you're watching Jaylen Brown get beat constantly, cutting to the hole. It was wow. It was bad, right? And so the problem here is that there's enough buy-in by the Heat and Nugget teams that we're seeing, the prettier teams, the flashier teams, we're seeing them get beat, right? The Suns, the Warriors, all these other teams, they're getting beat. And yet it's also brutal because the ratings are going to suffer. And I heard the ratings were down because, well, one, it's Miami, Denver, it's not LA, New York, right? But the ratings are going to suffer because people are going to cry boring. And they're going to cry that this brand of basketball is boring, like non-readers whine when they're asked to read something, right? Oh, it's boring, right? When people watching baseball are bored by a 2-1 pitcher's duel, they just don't get it because at least 3 generations have been indoctrinated and convinced that basketball is the NBA highlights that they've pushed and the players that they've pushed, that they actually represent good basketball when it was just the opposite. Seeing Miami and Denver, I feel like I'm seeing Miami playing Denver. And again, not Steph's Warriors, not Tatum Celtics, not Embiid Sixers, or LeBron's Lakers. Jokic and Jimmy Butler's style of play and how they lead their teams forces us not to see Jimmy against Joker, but it forces us to see the Miami Heat playing the Denver Nuggets, and the ball movement and the play is oh so refreshing. But it's going to take a lot for the NBA to change their fans around, the fans they've birthed these last 30 years that actually think launching threes, ISOs, no ball movement, the inability to move without the ball, the inability to play defense. They've done so much in convincing people that that's good basketball that they don't even recognize when they're watching Jokic and Butler. They're seeing great basketball. And with Jokic, you might be seeing the best player in the world, but he doesn't dunk the ball flashy. He doesn't launch threes repeatedly. He doesn't block shots consecutively on possessions. He doesn't sky, as we used to say. And they don't know they're seeing great basketball. They're seeing the best in the world, and because they've been conditioned. And that's why I think the NBA's bill is coming too. And because people that know how to play basketball, the physics of basketball, fundamental basketball, movement of the ball, moving without the ball, those are the things that win. And I know I went long on that. I went much longer than I wanted to on that, but I was so impressed All right. Hey, Ray, thanks for going. Thank you, Ray. Oh, man. Thank you so much. I didn't know you had clicked on, Ray. Thank you. Let's get to some Ram talk. And what I'm seeing today on the news is really what we used to call at the newspaper. We used to call it desperate dead period material. Back in the day, all the high schools used to take the first 3 weeks of August off. That's before school started opening the second week of August, and 0 week started being moved into August, and third week of August games were being played here in Southern California. Absolutely ridiculous, but whatever, we live with that. And so in the old days, the first 3 weeks, August 1st, August 21st, pretty much you go on vacation. That was when everyone took their break. And you were constantly looking for some kind of information that you could put on your website, just something, anything to get clicks. And when I saw the proposed trade of Aaron Donald to the Buffalo Bills for a stiff and a pick, I laughed because it just reeked of desperate dead period material. And someone said, I got to come up with something. And so I read the proposed trade, which showed Aaron Donald going to the Buffalo Bills for a first round pick and a former first round pick, 9th overall in 2019, Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver was the 43rd ranked DT out of 127 DTs, defensive tackles, ranked by PFF. And who was number 44? Marquise Copeland for the Rams was number 44. So that tells you what Ed Oliver is. And also that draft pick. A Bills draft pick is probably going to be plus 25, right? More likely plus 28, somewhere between 28 and 32. And why would someone post that? So either it was a gag or someone was just thinking they could stir the pot with this. Now, I'll be honest with you, as a Ram fan, I am not necessarily against trading Aaron Donald. What the Rams have done this offseason, they're trying to convince us they're not rebuilding, resetting, or whatever. And I know there's an emotional attachment. There was a way to get 2 draft picks or 2 number ones for Aaron Donald or something. Yeah, I'd make the move. You got the best out of him, and by the time the Rams maybe are ready to compete for another Super Bowl, he's going to be in his 11th or 12th year. Now it's Aaron Donald. He's an outlying talent. Maybe you don't want to trade him, but you're definitely not going to trade him for a low first round, 28th overall to 32 overall, 26 overall to 32 overall first rounder, and Ed Oliver, who is the equivalent of Marquise Copeland. He's even 6'1", 287. He might very well be Marquise Copeland. You're not going to trade him to Buffalo for that. And it was just, I know some people, smart people like Ray and people out there in Ramland that aren't going to buy that stuff, but there are a lot of people that do, and they go crazy. That one, I just laughed. Also, another aspect of desperate dead period material, another piece, was the proposed signing of former Denver Bronco guard Dalton Reisner. Reisner, 6'5", 312. He was 41st overall in 2019 out of Kansas State, and he's been solid. And I saw some speculation on that. That's a little more reasonable than, say, Aaron Donald being traded to Buffalo. But if you look at Reisner, he was graded out of 77 guards graded by Pro Football Focus. Dalton Reisner was ranked 42nd overall. He was graded behind Alaric Jackson and even Ode Abouche. Now, Ode Abouche wasn't even on the Rams roster when the season began. What was that you said there, Ray? 2 first-round picks are intriguing. However, I don't have faith Les could get 2 for AD. I totally agree with you on that, Ray. Thank you. I totally agree with you on that. But Reisner graded behind Alaric Jackson and Ode Abouche. And Abouche didn't start the season with the Rams. He's not back with the Rams. And what does that tell you about Dalton Reisner, right? If he is being bested by Ode Abouche in the grading. Now, Reisner is a decent enough in pass protection, but he's absolutely atrocious in run blocking. He's not going to clear anything. So Is he bad? No, he's just not anything special. His signing as a guard would mean serious doubts about Logan Bruss and Coleman Shelton. And I don't know if they have serious doubts about Logan Bruss and Coleman Shelton. They signed Coleman Shelton last year. They released him because of contract issues. This year they like Coleman Shelton. They invested in Logan Bruss, and he got hurt, so they don't know what Logan Bruss can do. Plus, he's wearing Dennis Harrah's number, for goodness sake. He's wearing number 60. You don't know what he can do. Alaric Jackson can start at guard if he has to and wait until maybe he moves to left tackle. Steve Avila was drafted to play. The Rams have held on to Tremaine Ankrum for a reason. They believe in him. And so these things, the Rams offensive line we've been talking about, the Rams offensive line has the potential not to be, it's already okay, but the Rams offensive line has potential to be good. It could be a good offensive line. We're not talking the 76 Cardinals that only allowed 8 sacks, but a good offensive line. And I don't see where Dalton Reisner fits into this, because one of those other guys will probably have to go. He's probably going to want money, which everyone does, right? But if you're looking where the Rams are in terms of their salary cap, because there's not been a restructure announced yet, no one's been cut yet. Over the cap, I think, has the Rams with a little less than 2. Spot Track has the Rams with about 4 rocks available. 4 rocks being $1 million. And so there's just, how much money are you going to spend on a guy that's going to play tight end, or not tight end, guard? And you've got depth. You've drafted depth for these spots. And so it's going to be real interesting to see how it plays out. But I don't see the Rams signing Dalton Reisner. They very well could. I could be wrong. But I think if they sign him, it's a statement about Bruss and Coleman Shelton. And the other thing, too, is, you've also drafted Warren McClendon. And you wonder what they're going to do with him. Is he going to be a practice squad guy? I think the 9 guys projected to be on the Rams roster on this offensive line, Noteboom, Avila, Allen, Shelton, and Havenstein as the starters, Bruss, Tremaine Ankrum, Warren McClendon, Alaric Jackson. Alaric Jackson could be a starter easily. This is a solid group that can be good, really a good offensive line, and a good offensive line with the ability to plow the road can really make the Rams viable. Especially, they're going to need to they don't need to be a quick strike offense this year. They need to be a slow strike offense this year, so that defense doesn't get too much time on the field. All right, cool. Got a little dramatic there. I'm Joe Terosian, and I get to do RamView thanks to our sponsors at Kistler Law and Temple City Auto. Also, I have been a sports writer. I was a sports writer, still am kind of, for 21 years. And I do RamView now. I used to work at Mid-Valley Sports, one of the founding members there. Those guys are in the room covering the Chargers. I do the Rams. And I write books. And my books are available on Amazon, and you could purchase them there. Take a look at them, and everything helps. I do this. I subsidize my income. I am the pastor of a small church in Burbank Faith Naz, which you can find right here on YouTube on our Burbank Faith virtual channel. So be sure to check it out. And I think that's the commercial. All right. This is the stuff that's fun. On this date in 1950, Lawrence McCutcheon was born. McCutcheon turned 73 today. The Rams took McCutcheon 3rd round, 70th overall in 1972 out of Colorado State. Now, he had a knee injury, and he didn't play much his rookie year. He was very slow to recover. And then the Rams got a whole new coaching staff in 73. Chuck Knox came in, and whatever you might have an opinion about Chuck Knox looked at Lawrence McCutcheon, and he invested in Lawrence McCutcheon. So we had McCutcheon and Bertelsen in there. McCutcheon ran for 1,097 yards. He missed 2 games that year in a 14-game season. And Jim Bertelsen ran for 854 yards, the late, great Jim Bertelsen. But McCutcheon, between 73 through 77, he ran for 1,000 yards 4 times. The only time he didn't run for 1,000 yards was 1975, and he ran for 911 yards. And if not for a knee injury, he would have gone over 1,000. Still, that same season in 1975, he rushed for 202 yards in a playoff game against the Cardinals at the Coliseum. Great win by the Rams. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler, and he also caught 198 passes. No small feat in the decade of the 70s, and no small feat when playing for the Rams to catch that many passes. So McCutcheon, we wish him, Sir Lawrence of Los Angeles, right? We wish him a happy birthday. His son Dalen, of course, played at USC and in the NFL. The interesting thing about Lawrence McCutcheon, I'll always go back to. Right now, I definitely think he is in the hall of the very good. But you wonder if the Rams had made the Super Bowl in his prime. Now, when he was 29, the Rams made the Super Bowl, and that was the one they lost to the Steelers. Super Bowl 14, he threw the touchdown pass to Ron Smith on the option play. But Wendell Tyler at that point had supplanted him as the lead back, and McCutcheon was on the downside. You wonder if the Rams had popped into the Super Bowl, between 73 and 77, if they had popped in and won one of those Super Bowls, if maybe, and they had the team to do it, if maybe McCutcheon might be getting Hall of Fame consideration instead of just Hall of the Very Good consideration. McCutcheon was an excellent back. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't a home run hitter. I wonder if it's fair to say he was Curtis Martin of the 70s. That might be something to consider. Also, yesterday I posted around social media, I posted that the anniversary of Pat Haden's retirement. Pat Haden retired June 1st, 1982. And I posted a picture of him, and I couldn't believe how everyone was just going after Pat Haden, man. They were just going after him. And by the numbers we gauge quarterbacks now, absolutely. Haden was 52 touchdown passes, 60 interceptions. He threw for less than 10,000 yards. But as a starter for the Rams were 35-19-1 in games he started. That one tie was in, I think, 76 in Minnesota. And he was 2-3 as a playoff quarterback. And yeah, his numbers were atrocious. 4 touchdown passes, 12 interceptions. But it was interesting about Pat Haden is that he was at quarterback for the 76 Rams when they actually won in Dallas. John Haden didn't win in Dallas, right? Jaworski and Harris couldn't beat Dallas at home in 75 in the 37-7 loss. And so he was the quarterback on that 1976 team that went into Dallas around Christmas time, which was one of my favorite Ram games ever. And they beat the Cowboys. That was the 14-12 game, the Rusty Jackson game, where the Rams are up 14-10, and Rusty Jackson takes the punt, fields the snap, and runs out of the end zone and then spikes it because he wouldn't get the punt blocked. The very next week, however, it was Haden at quarterback who threw the interception to Bobby Bryant that sealed the Rams' loss. And there was feeling, I remember watching that game, why isn't James Harris playing? James Harris had led the conference in passing. I'm going to mention James Harris here and again in a second. Haden's, of course, was the quarterback of record in the Mud Bowl in 77, which was a disaster. And it was the last game for Chuck Knox. And you wonder maybe Knox probably should have pulled him and tried out Joe Namath. Haden suffered from small hands, arm issues, and the Rams lost that game in 77. And they should have fired the groundskeeper who didn't cover the field. But we'll talk about that one later, I guess. But in 78, Haden came back, had his best playoff game through and another pick in a 34-10 win over Minnesota. He was the quarterback of Minnesota in the playoffs, which was Fran Tarkenton's last game. The issue with Haden was interesting because he locally went to Bishop Amat, played at USC, and that's when USC, did have Camelot feel to it. It was just magical, The music would play. He's thrown to J.K. McKay. Anthony Davis is the running back, national titles. And that win over Ohio State in what would be the 75 Rose Bowl at the conclusion of the 74 season, his touchdown pass to J.K. McKay and then his pass to Shelton Diggs on the 2-point conversion gave USC a 18-17 victory. He was LA royalty. He was the blonde surfer dude, right? He had the blonde hair. I don't know if he ever surfed, but he was the young blonde surfer dude. And I was thinking about how when the people were saying they hated Haden, he was the worst quarterback ever. Can I just tell you, I was a James Harris fan, so I was really mad when Harris got benched. Harris was an excellent, as far as I was concerned, was an excellent quarterback. He wasn't perfect, but he was big, he was strong, had a strong arm. But I remember being at school and hearing people go, "Oh, Pat Haden," because of USC. And the girls liked him. Oh, Pat Haden. And Haden even talked about it, how he was the darling of the Coliseum his first couple of years with the Rams. Everybody loved Pat Haden. And then slowly, as the losses mounted and different things happened, the mob is fickle. And then they started hating Pat Haden. And Vince Ferragamo was taller and better looking, and he had a stronger arm. And of course, Ferragamo caught fire late in '79 and led the Rams to the Super Bowl. And really, just one or two missed plays there, he would have won the Super Bowl for the Rams. Haden was a smart quarterback, perfect backup quarterback. And the reason he was a starter was because he was in LA. He started in '76 because Carroll Rosenblum wanted him starting over James Harris because I think he was a better ticket. One of the things that Ram fans at that time and Rosenblum was about is the Rams were kind of boring. People used to complain that Ground Chuck was boring. Ground Chuck being Ground Chuck Knox. They just ran the ball and everything. And he was the young, flashy young kid. And so Rosenblum wanted him in there. Knox wanted to go with James Harris. And it's kind of apparent that Rosenblum wanted this because the very next year they brought in kind of a washed Joe Namath. And so Joe Namath was another example of just wanting to make a splash, right? And, Rosenblum brought back George Allen because he wanted to make a splash. And winning wasn't good enough. They wanted to make a splash. And so Haden struggled. Haden was good at times. Haden was solid. Haden was competent. And on June 1st, 1982, after going to minicamp in May and probably throwing alongside of the bigger, taller, stronger armed Burt Jones, he decided to retire and such. So I just thought it was interesting because Pat Haden was right in the thick of it in the Rams in those years that the Rams were kind of winning and still in turmoil. I wanted to mention that. Okay, one thing I want to get across here just before we finish. My thoughts on, all right, Ray, thanks for the question. My thoughts on Matthew Stafford being able to stay healthy this upcoming season. If you looked at him, Ray, he's in great shape. He is in really great shape. They say the arm looks good. You've seen the highlights. The arm looks good. That's where I feel more confident about this team offensively is because what happened to the offensive line last year is not going to happen this year. That was so off the charts, such an outlier that I just don't see it being repeated. And the Rams have talent on the offensive line. And I think it's going to be better than people think. And if that's the case, and as long as McVay doesn't abandon the run, everything we're hearing is they're going to get back more to running the ball. And if they keep running the ball, that'll keep the pressure off of Stafford and give him opportunities. Some people liken the Rams offense this year looking something like it was in 2018, 2019. Remember every drop back was a play action to Gurley, right? Play action to Gurley, play action to Gurley. And I think that's what I've been told. That's what I've heard. The Rams are thinking about getting back to. And so that would, again, also take pressure off of Matthew Stafford. But yeah, he does look great so far. Hey, before we wrap up here, I want to get into the Rams. We're going through the Rams schedule week by week in each episode. Wednesday, we did week 1 against the Seahawks, and we looked at their defense. And we're going to look at the 49ers defense today. And I still projected the Rams losing in Seattle in week 1. So we're going to look right now in week 2. Rams 49ers are at SoFi September 17th, 2023. All time, the 49ers lead the series 76, 67, and 3. They're 1-1 against each other in the playoffs. Are they 1-1 in the playoffs? I don't know. I think I missed that there. Oh, yeah, we got the win in the NFC Championship game. My bad. I project the Rams losing this game to the 49ers. I just do. Sam Darnold coming out at quarterback, maybe there's a chance. But right now they're saying Brock Purdy's on track. And if Brock Purdy's on track, then yeah, we know they're a playoff team. They were 13-4 last year. They did take some losses. Jimmy G's gone. Mike McGlinchey, the right tackle, he's in Denver. Jimmy Ward, he's gone. And Samson Ibukam's gone. Their big free agent signing was they signed Javon Hargrave out of Philly, and he's pretty good. And that's when you look at that 49er defense, and you see they have elites at every level. The 49ers have elites at every level. Hargrave, he, according to PFF, out of 127 graded DTs last year, he's 11th overall, and that's pretty significant. On the edge, Nick Bosa, 119 edge players graded. Nick Bosa is number 3 overall. Off-ball linebackers, Fred Warner is 2nd out of 87 graded. Dre Greenlaw is 9 out of 87 graded. Chavarius Ward, coming over from the Chiefs last year, he is graded the 6th best out of 118 cornerbacks. At safety, Talona Hufanga, we know, he's the new Polamalu. He was 23 out of 88. He might not be elite, but he's very good. And Tayshaun Gibson, who's in his 12th year, he's turning 33 this year. He was ranked 34 out of 88. And Gibson, though, is interesting because he's kind of long in the tooth and kind of had a rejuvenation, but he played so well that it caused them to let Jimmy Ward go. And you just wonder, at 33, been in the league since 2012, you wonder how much Gibson has left. And the 49ers also drafted Jair Brown, the safety out of Penn State, 3rd round, 87 overall. You look at this team and you just think, man, this team's heavy. This team is strong. They're still running Eric Armstead out there. He's not even considered their best DT, but he just turned 30. And he only played, 9 games last year. And he was ranked 57 out of 127 DTs. And so you wonder, maybe is there a possibility of some age there, maybe some vulnerability, but then they went and signed Hargrave. They're running Lenore at the other corner, and we'll see. But right now, the 49ers technically don't know who their quarterback is. And the best part is they drafted a kicker with the 99th overall selection. How do I see this? I wish this game was at in Santa Clara, Levi Stadium week 2, so they can blow us out. And I wish later on they were coming to SoFi, because I don't think then the Rams defense will be better. I don't think the Rams will be able to acquit themselves as well in week 2 against the 49ers. So Rams are going to fall to 0-2. I don't see them winning this game. So I want to say thank you for clicking on. I saw folks dipping in and out. I hope you weren't getting bounced, but it was a good show. It was a stone groove. So thank you so much, everyone, for clicking on, and Ray for the content. And I love answering questions. I'll interrupt anything just to keep answering questions. It's a lot of fun to answer questions. I'm Joe Terosian, and thank you so much for liking and subscribing. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify. My handle on Twitter and Instagram is JoeT13B, JoeT13B, and you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at that handle. Thank you so much. God bless. Take care. Have a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday.